I'm 21 Average, and this is the Improvement Conversation. Today we're going to talk about why I don't trust motivation anymore. For me, motivation used to be a tool that I could use to do hard things and to trick myself into getting the things that I needed to get done but didn't want to done. However, I've found more and more that motivation isn't enough, and in our teenage years, as life gets harder and people expect more of us, we start to realize that we can't just rely on motivation to not only meet other people's expectations, like school, but at the same time, meet our own expectations, like for me, YouTube and being a musician. So what I like to do is learn consistency instead. Motivation and consistency can work together, and motivation can actually be defined in many ways. So I don't think motivation is inherently wrong, and I definitely don't think it's a bad thing. In fact, I think it's exactly what you need to get started. However, replacing motivation with consistency in certain parts of my life has completely flipped my systems for getting things done and my habits on their head. I now feel like I can literally do things that some people would find so hard and that they would just quit after literally trying to do something for 10 minutes. I can do those types of things for an hour and a half. And specifically for this example, I'm talking about practicing music, because I practice for an hour and a half every morning, waking up at 6 a.m. Sometimes when I tell people that I practice this early and for this long, they don't believe me, or they tell me that it's really impressive, and sometimes I hear the word motivation. How do you stay so motivated? You're such a motivated dude, and all this kind of stuff. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it, because when I really think about it, it's not motivation. I had to ask myself this because I really did think that I was motivated, and I think that I am motivated to an extent. But realistically, I don't even want to be a musician. And so, why do I practice for an hour and a half? And where does the motivation come from if I realize that I'm probably going to stop playing at some point in my life, maybe in the next couple of years? The thing is that it's really not motivation at all. And the word consistency fits nicely here, not just because I've been consistent and that I'm consistent now, but it's that I've been playing music for about 6 or 7 years. And for that time, I've basically been consistent enough to practice every single day. At first, it used to be mostly because of my parents. They would make sure that I practiced when I wasn't feeling enough motivation. So you're already seeing that motivation wasn't there from the beginning. But I did come to love it. And basically, throughout the first couple years of high school, and even the later years of middle school, I would say, I was consistently motivated to practice. The nuance with this, though, is that it didn't take a lot of motivation, because being realistic, I wouldn't get home from school every day. By the way, this was before I practiced in the morning, but I wouldn't get home from school every day and feel a huge burst of energy to play music for 30 minutes or more. But because it was the thing that was built into my schedule and that I had done so many times before, it was almost robotic, meaning it didn't take a lot, just that extra 10% motivation to get myself to my music stand and my violin, and then from there I was golden. I knew what to do. My guess is that this is because that other 90% came from habits, otherwise known as consistency. And so, the best thing we really can do for creating a habit and just doing that hard thing is literally doing that hard thing, but not just doing it once, doing it for years. So, to really get to this point, you do have to pick something that's very hard to do and do it over and over again, every single day, for multiple years. And this sounds daunting and not particularly fun, and I'd be lying if it wasn't. But at the same time, it's not really as hard as you think. The more actionable things I did, and things that someone who doesn't have parents making sure that they practice every single day or do that specific habit every single day, is to set an alarm every single day at the time that you want to do it. Make it easy, which means arrange your life in a way that it's pretty easy. So, for the example, I used to always keep my violin out on a little hanger instead of in my case, so that I could just pick it up off of the hanger. My music was already out. I set it the day before, and I could start practicing in like 2 movements instead of 10. And this seems little, but it's actually huge. Another thing is, I never really committed to telling myself how long I was going to practice. Now I force myself to practice for an hour and a half every morning. But before, it really used to be 20 to 30 minutes, and that's how I built up the stamina and the consistency to be able to hit an hour and a half every single day. So don't make yourself do a lot, and even 20 minutes can be a lot. I seriously think that if someone wants to learn a habit, they can start by doing 1 to 5 minutes a day and build it from there, because it's ridiculous to assume that we'd be able to do something for even 20 minutes a day when we start out. And society puts so much pressure that you have to get 10,000 hours before you master something, and so you better start, and that's this many days, and it's like, okay, but in order to get to a point where you're putting in that level of work, you need to start somewhere easier, which for me was literally 5 to 10 minutes a day, maybe even less, when I was just starting out. That compounded, so each 5 to 10 minutes a day that it seemed like I was putting in there really turned into be over 20 minutes, because I started practicing for 20 to 30 minutes. And the only reason I could do that was because of my 5 to 10 minutes before. And then that itself was more than over 20 minutes, because now I practice for an hour and a half. Even now, I feel like I'm at a point in my life where you could tell me that I'll barely even improve, even if I keep practicing for an hour and a half. And I still probably would practice, just because it's not that hard for me at all anymore, because of my consistency. I make it easy. I get a drink that I like, my favorite jacket, my favorite slippers, a cushiony chair. I make it easy because I make my violin super accessible and my music already out. And there's worse things to do than spend my time playing music. I don't want to say you have to do something, but I would suggest that you pick a habit. Use the advice that I laid out in this video if you want to, and hopefully you'll be able to make it one step at a time to a place that you want to be in your life. I'm 21 Average, and this has been the Improvement Conversation. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad we got to talk.